I am Shaggy. I'm Philaliteia. And as I was walking home to my tent, seen here, tonight, I had the thought to myself, I would like to read Marcus Aurelius. So, I bought it. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. And now I'm going to read them from the beginning for you. We'll see how far we get. Likes, comments, subscriptions, and, naturally, Patreon memberships will get me to continue. The Thoughts of Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. 1. From my grandfather, Verus, I learned good morals and the government of my temper. From the reputation and remembrance of my father, modesty and a manly character. From my mother, piety and beneficence and abstinence, not only from evil deeds, but even from evil thoughts. And further, simplicity in my way of living, far removed from the habits of the rich. From my great-grandfather, not to have frequent public schools, and to have had good teachers at home, and to know that on such things a man should spend liberally. And now this is where you're going to want to go find my shorts where I'm talking about the difference in leisure and school. And so when he says to not have frequent public schools, he means to not spend your leisure frequently in public arguing over vain and unnecessary topics with other people your own age, or in your peer group intellectually, or beneath it. Annius Verus was my grandfather's name, and there is no verb in this section connected with the word from, nor in the following sections of this book, and it is not quite certain what verb should be supplied. What I have added may express this meaning here, though there are sections which it will not fit. If he does not mean to say that he learned all these good things from the Wait a minute. Sorry. I don't know why that just suddenly went into footnotes. From my governor, to be neither of the green nor of the blue party at the games in the circus. You recognize green and blue as parties? Neither the red nor the blue party, maybe? Nor a partisan either of the Parmularius or the Scutarius at the gladiators' fights. From him, too, I learned endurance of labor and to want little, and to work with my own hands, and not to meddle with other people's affairs, and not to be ready to listen to slander. All of this is interesting, because when he says not to care, let's say, particularly about the gladiatorial fights, his son died in a gladiatorial fight that was supposed to be a mock fight. From Diognetus, not to busy myself about trifling things, and not to give credit to what was said by miracle workers and jugglers about incantations and the driving away of daemons and such things, and not to breed quails for fighting, nor to give myself up passionately to such things, and to endure freedom of speech, and to have become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer first of Bacchius, then of Tandasis and Marcianus, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and skin, and whatever else of the kind belongs to the Grecian discipline. From Rusticus I received the impression that my character required improvement and discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray to sophistic emulation, nor to writing on speculative matters, nor to delivering little oratory orations, nor to showing myself off as a man who practices much discipline, or does benevolent acts in order to make a display. Hortatory is a word I'm not familiar with. My dictionary doesn't tell me. Okay. And to abstain from rhetoric and poetry and fine writing, and not to walk about in the house of my outdoor, or about the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do other things of the kind, and to write my letters with simplicity, like the letter which Rusticus wrote from Sinuessa to my mother, and with respect to those who have offended me by words, or done me wrong, to be easily disposed to be pacified and reconciled, as soon as they have shown a readiness to be reconciled, and to read carefully, and not to be satisfied with a superficial understanding of a book, nor hastily to give my assent to those who talk overmuch. And I am indebted to him for being acquainted with the discourses of Epictetus, which he communicated to me out of his own collection. From Sextus, a benevolent disposition, and the example of a family governed in a fatherly manner, and the idea of living comfortably to nature, and gravity without affectation, and to look carefully after the interest of friends, and to tolerate ignorant persons, and those who form opinions without consideration. He had the power of readily accommodating himself to all, so that intercourse with him was more agreeable than any flattery, and at the same time he was most highly venerated by those who associated with him. And he had the faculty both of discovery and ordering, in an intelligent and methodical way, the principles necessary for life, and he never showed anger or any other passion, but was entirely free from passion, and also most affectionate. And he could express approbation without noisy display, and he possessed much knowledge without ostentation. From Alexander, the grammarian, to refrain from fault-finding, and not in a reproachful way to chide those who uttered any barbarous or solecistic or strange-sounding expression, but dexterously to introduce the very expression which ought to have been used, and in the way of answer or giving confirmation, or joining in any inquiry about the thing itself, not about the word, or by some other fit suggestion. From Fronto, I learned to observe that envy and duplicity and hypocrisy are in a tyrant, and that generally those among us who are called patricians are rather deficient in paternal affection. From Alexander the Platonic, not frequently, nor without necessity to say to any one or to write in a letter that I have no leisure, nor continually to excuse the neglect of duties required by our relation to those whom we live, by alleging urgent occupations. He's saying not to pretend that you're busy when you're not. From Catullus, not to be indifferent when a friend finds fault, even if he should find fault without reason, but to try to restore him to his usual disposition, and to be ready to speak well of teachers, as it is reported of Domitius and Athenodotus, and to love my children truly. Sextus of Chaeronea, a grandson of Plutarch, or nephew, as some say, but more probably a grandson. From my brother Severus, to love my kin, and to love truth, and to love justice. And through him I learned to know Thrasea, Helvidius, Cato, Dion, Brutus. And from him I received the idea of a polity in which there is the same law for all, a polity administered with regard to equal rights and equal freedom of speech, and the idea of a kingly government which respects most of all the freedom of the governed. I learned from him also consistency and undeviating steadiness in my regard for philosophy, and a disposition to do good, and to give to others readily, and to cherish good hopes, and to believe that I am loved by my friends. And in him I observed no concealment of his opinions with respect to those whom he condemned, and that his friends had no need to conjecture what he wished or did not wish, but it was quite plain. From Maximus I learned self-government, and not to be led aside by anything, and cheerfulness in all circumstances, as well as in illness, and a just admixture in the moral character of sweetness and dignity, and to do what was set before me without complaining. I observed that everybody believed that he thought as he spoke, and that in all that he did he never had any bad intention. And he never showed amazement and surprise, and was never in a hurry, and never put off doing a thing, nor was perplexed, nor dejected, nor did he ever laugh to disguise his vexation, nor, on the other hand, was he ever passionate or suspicious. He was accustomed to do acts of beneficence, and was ready to forgive, and was free from all falsehood, and he presented the appearance of a man who could not be diverted from right, rather than of a man who had been improved. I observed, too, that no man could ever think that he was despised by Maximus, or ever venture to think himself a better man. He had also the art of being humorous in an agreeable way. In my father, I observed mildness of temper, and unchangeable resolution in the things which he had determined after due deliberation, and no vainglory in those things which men call honors, and a love of labor and perseverance, and a readiness to listen to those who had anything to propose for the common weal, and undeviating firmness in giving to every man according to his deserts, and knowledge derived from experience of the occasions for vigorous action and for remission. And I observed that he had overcome all passion for boys, and he considered himself no more than any other citizen. And he released his friends from all obligation to sup with him, or to attend him of necessity when he went abroad, and those who had failed to accompany him by reason of any urgent circumstances always found him the same. I observed too his habit of careful inquiry in all matters of deliberation, and his persistency, and that he never stopped his investigation through being satisfied with appearances which first present themselves, and that his disposition was to keep his friends, and not to be soon tired of them, nor yet to be extravagant in his affection, and to be satisfied on all occasions, and cheerful, and to foresee things a long way off, and to provide for the smallest without display, and to check immediately popular applause, and all flattery, and to be ever watchful over the things which were necessary for the administration of the empire, and to be a good manager of the expenditure, and patiently to endure the blame which he got for such conduct. And he was neither superstitious with respect to the gods, nor did he court men by gifts, or by trying to pleasure them, or by flattering the populace, but he showed sobriety in all things, and firmness, and never any mean thoughts or action, nor love of novelty, and the things which conduce in any man to the common commodity of life, and of which fortune gives an abundant supply, he used without arrogance, and without excusing himself. So that when he had them, he enjoyed them without affectation, and when he had them not, he did not want them. No one could ever say of him that he was either a sophist, or a home-bred, flippant slave, or a pedant. But everyone acknowledged him to be a man ripe, perfect, above flattery, able to manage his own and other men's affairs. Besides this, he honored those who were true philosophers, and he did not reproach those who pretended to be philosophers, nor yet was he easily led by them. He was also easy in conversation, and he made himself agreeable without any offensive affectation. He took a reasonable care of his body's health, not as one who was greatly attached to life, nor out of regard to personal appearance, nor yet in a careless way, but so that through his own attention he very seldom stood in need of the physician's art, or of medicine, or external applications. He was most ready to give without envy to those who possessed any particular faculty, such as that of eloquence, or knowledge, of the law, or of morals, or of anything else, and he gave them his help, that he might enjoy reputation according to his deserts, and he always acted comfortably to the institutions of his country, without showing any affectation of doing so. Further, He was not fond of change nor unsteady, but he loved to stay in the same places, and to employ himself about the same things. And after his paroxysms of headache, he came immediately fresh and vigorous to his usual occupations. I just want to say here that one of the things he's saying is this guy is talking about went to jury duty happily. His secrets were not many, but very few and very rare, and these only about public matters. And he showed prudence and economy in the exhibition of the public spectacles and the construction of public buildings, his donations to the people, and in such things, for he was a man who looked to what ought to be done, not to the reputation which is got by a man's acts. He did not take the bath as unseasonable at unseasonable hours. He was not fond of building houses, nor curious about what he ate, nor about the texture and color of his clothes, nor about the beauty of his slaves. His dress came from Lorium, his villa on the coast, and from Lanavium generally. We know how... Suddenly this is... I don't know when that started being footnotes, but it's suddenly footnotes. To the gods I am indebted for having good grandfathers, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good associates, good kinsmen and friends, nearly everything good. Further, I owe it to the gods that I was not hurried into offense against any of them, though I had a disposition which, if opportunity had offered, might have led me to do something of this kind, but through their favor there never was such an occurrence of circumstances as put me to the trial. Further, I am thankful to the gods that I was not longer brought up with my grandfather's concubine, and that I preserved the flower of my youth, and that I did not make proof of my virility before the proper season, but even deferred the time, meaning that he didn't lose his virginity early and actually waited until he felt that he was emotionally and intellectually prepared for what comes after. Meaning he also didn't sleep with his grandfather's sex slave. Concubine is actually a higher position than sex slave, but might not have been in this case. That I was subjected to a ruler and father who was able to take away all pride from me, and to bring me to the knowledge that it is possible for a man to live in a palace without wanting either guards or embroidered dresses, or torches and statues, and such like show, but that it is in such a man's power to bring himself very near to the fashion of a private person, without being for this reason either meaner in thought or more remiss in action with respect to the things which must be done for the public interest in a manner that befits a ruler. I thank the gods for giving me such a brother, who was able by his moral character to rouse me to vigilance over myself, and who at the same time pleased me by his respect and affection, that my children have not been stupid nor deformed in body, that I did not make more proficiency in rhetoric, poetry, and the other studies, in which I should perhaps have been completely engaged, if I had seen that I was making progress in them, that I made haste to place those who brought me up in the station of honor, which they seemed to desire, without putting them off, with hope of my doing it some other time after, because they were then still young, that I knew Apollonius, Rusticus, Maximus, that I received clear and frequent impressions about living according to nature, and what kind of a life that is, so that, so far as depended on the gods and their gifts, and help, and inspirations, nothing hindered me from forthwith living according to nature, though I still fall short of it through my own fault, and through not observing the admonitions of the gods, and I may almost say, their direct instructions, that my body has held out so long in such a kind of life, that I never touched either Benedicta or Theodotus, and that, after having fallen into amatory passions, I was cured, and, though I was often out of humor with Rusticus, I never did anything of which I had occasion to repent, that, though it was my brother's fate to die young, she spent the last years of her life with me, that, whenever I wished to help any man in his need, or on any other occasion, I was never told that I had not the means of doing it, and that to myself the same necessity never happened, to receive anything from another, and that I have such a wife, so obedient, and so affectionate, and so simple, that I had abundance of good masters for my children, and that my remedies have been shown to me by my dreams, both others, and against blood spitting and giddiness, and that, when I had an inclination to philosophy, I did not fall into the hands of any sophist, and that I did not waste my time on writers of histories, or in the resolution of syllogisms, or occupy myself about the investigation of appearances in the heavens. For all these things require the help of the gods and fortune. Book 2. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, unsocial. I used to say this to myself every single day before going to work. You are going to engage with the worst kinds of people. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good that it is beautiful, and of the bad that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me, not only of the same blood or seed, but that it participates in the same intelligence and the same portion of the divinity, I can neither be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him. For we are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be vexed and turned away. Whatever this is that I am, it is a little flesh and breath, and the ruling part. Throw away the books, no longer distract thyself, it is not allowed. But, as if thou wast now dying, despise the flesh. It is blood and bones and network, a contexture of nerves, veins, and arteries. See the breath, also, what kind of a thing it is, air, and not always the same, but every moment sent out and again sucked in. The third, then, is the ruling part. Consider thus. Thou art an old man. No longer let this be a slave, no longer be pulled by the strings like a puppet to unsocial movements, no longer be either dissatisfied with thy present lot or shrink from the future. All that is from the gods is full of providence. That which is from fortune is not separated from nature, or without an interweaving and involution with the things which are ordered by providence. From thence all things flow, and there is besides necessity and that which is for the advantage of the whole universe, of which thou art a part. But that is good, for every part of nature which the nature of the whole brings, and what serves to maintain this nature. Now, the universe is preserved, as by the changes of the elements, so by the changes of things compounded of the elements. Let these principles be enough for thee. Let them always be fixed opinions. But cast away the thirst after books, that thou mayest not die murmuring, but cheerfully, truly, and from thy heart thankful to the gods. Remember how long thou hast been putting off these things, and how often thou hast received an opportunity from the gods, and yet dost not use it. Thou must now at last perceive of what universe thou art a part, and of what administrator of the universe thy existence is in efflux, and that a limit of time is fixed for thee, which, if thou dost not use for clearing away the clouds from thy mind, it will go, and thou wilt go, and it will never return. Every moment think steadily as a Roman and a man, to do what thou hast in hand with perfect and simple dignity, and feeling of affection, and freedom, and justice, and to give thyself relief from all other thoughts. And thou wilt give thyself relief, if thou doest every act of thy life as if it were the last, laying aside all carelessness and passionate aversion from the commands of reason, and all hypocrisy, and self-love, and discontent with the portion which has been given to thee. Let me tell you a story. I got it on video, actually. Yesterday, I was making a little music video for YouTube, one of my shorts, and as I'm walking across the street with the green light, a guy tried to make an illegal left-hand turn to try to cut in front of oncoming traffic in his giant white truck because he knew that those people would slow down to let him pass. But I didn't. I just kept walking, and I made direct eye contact with him. If you're going to come out into that lane illegally, you're going to hit my fucking ass, and I'm going to watch you do it. I'm going to watch. And then his ass sped away from me, flipping him off. And that giant truck, you'd think he would have cut me off in Panera to get out of his car to tell me that nobody treats him like that. Not a man. That truck, all that hypocrisy and self-love, all this caring about fashion, not a man. He might have a penis, but it doesn't work proper. Thou seest how few the things are, the which, if a man lays hold of, he is able to live a life which flows in quiet, and is like the existence of the gods, for the gods on their parts will require nothing more from him who observes these things. Do wrong to thyself, my soul, but thou wilt no longer have the opportunity of honoring thyself. Every man's life is sufficient, but thine is nearly finished. Though thy soul reverences not itself, but places thy felicity in the souls of others. Do the things external which fall upon thee distract thee? Give thyself time to learn something new and good, and cease to be whirled around. And then thou must also avoid being carried about the other way. For those too are triflers who have wearied themselves in life by their activity, and yet have no object to which to direct every movement, and, in a word, all their thoughts. Through not observing what is in the mind of another man, has seldom been seen to be unhappy. I'm going to read that again. Through not observing what is in the mind of another man, has seldom been seen to be unhappy. But those who do not observe the movements of their own minds must, of necessity, be unhappy. This thou must always bear in mind, what is the nature of the whole and what is my nature, and how this is related to that, and what kind of a part it is, what kind of a whole, and that there is no one who hinders thee from always doing and saying the things which are according to the nature of which thou art a part. Theophrastus, and his comparison of bad acts, such a comparison as one would make in accordance with the common notions of mankind, says, like a true philosopher, that the offenses which are committed through desire are more blamable than those which are committed through anger. He agrees with the Phaedrus. For he who is excited by anger seems to turn away from reason with a certain pain and unconscious contraction, but he who offends through desire, being overpowered by pleasure, seems to be in a manner more intemperate and more womanish in his offenses. Rightly then, and in a way worthy of philosophy, he said that the offense which is committed with pleasure is more blamable than that which is committed with pain. And on the whole, the one is more like a person who has been first wronged, and through pain is compelled to be angry, but the other is moved by his own impulse to do wrong, being carried toward doing something by desire. And so what he's saying is that sexually harassing a woman with your words, with your desire for her, hey Bonnie, is worse than, hey Bonnie, what's up little Bonnie? He hasn't done this in a while. Since it is possible that thou mayest depart from life this very moment, regulate every act and thought accordingly. But to go away from among men, if there are gods, is not a thing to be afraid of. For the gods will not involve thee in evil. But if indeed they do exist, or if they have no concern about human affairs, what is it to me to live in a universe devoid of gods or devoid of providence? But in truth, they do exist, and they do care for human things, and they have put all the means in man's power to enable him not to fall into real evils. And as to the rest, if there was anything evil, they would have provided for this also, that it should be altogether in a man's power not to fall into it. Now, that which does not make a man worse, how can it make a man's life worse? But neither through ignorance, nor having the knowledge but not the power to guard against or correct these things, is it possible that the nature of the universe has overlooked them, nor is it possible that it has made so great a mistake, either through want of power or want of skill, that good and evil should happen indiscriminately to the good and the bad. But death, certainly, and life, honor and dishonor, pain and pleasure, all these things equally happen to good man and bad, being things which make us neither better nor worse. Therefore, they are neither good nor are they evil. How quickly all things disappear, in the universe the bodies themselves, but in time the remembrance of them. What is the nature of all sensible things, and particularly those which attract with the bait of pleasure, or terrify by pain, or are noised abroad by vapory fame? How worthless! Why? Oh, sorry. How worthless and contemptible and sordid and perishable and dead they are. All this, it is the part of the intellectual faculty to observe, too, who these are whose opinions and voices give reputation, what death is, and the fact that, if a man looks at it in itself, and by the abstractive power of reflection resolves into their parts all the things which present themselves to the imagination in it, he will then consider it to be nothing else than an operation of nature. And if any one is afraid of an operation of nature, he is a child. This, however, is not only an operation of nature, but it is also a thing which conduces to the purposes of nature. You know, it's funny. I once told my wife that I thought that her choosing birth control instead of just managing her menstrual cycle was the behavior of a child. Yeah, well, now you know why I'm divorced. To observe, too, how man comes near to the deity, and by what part of him, and when this part of man is so disposed. Nothing is more wretched than a man who traverses everything and around, and pries into the things beneath the earth, as the poet says, and seeks by conjecture what is in the minds of his neighbors, without perceiving that it is sufficient to attend to the daemon within him, and to reverence it sincerely. And reverence of the daemon consists in keeping it pure from passion and thoughtlessness and dissatisfaction with what comes from gods and men. For the things from the gods merit veneration for their excellence, and the things from men should be dear to us by reason of kinship. And sometimes even, in a manner, they move our pity by reason of men's ignorance of good and bad. This defect being not less than that which deprives us of the power of distinguishing things that are white and black. And this is why I'm just so constantly laughing when people say, like, people get upset when I ask, why do you like this? I don't like this. Why do you like this? I like that you like it. That's what he just said there. That's what he just said. He said, for the things that the gods merit veneration for their excellence, for the things from the gods merit veneration for their excellence, and the things from men should be dear to us by reason of kinship. That is, the things that men like, we should also like. We just don't have to participate. It should be dear to us that they like them. And so, like, on my Metroid videos, I'm genuinely trying to get somebody to explain to me why they like it. And that bunny is, like, right up on that poison ivy. They must not... It must just, like, not taste good to them or something? I don't know. Anyway, continuing on. Though thou shouldest be going to live 3,000 years and as many times 10,000 years. That's a direct reference to the Phaedrus, by the way. Still remember that no man loses any other life than this which he now lives. Because what Plato says in the Phaedrus is that you reincarnate in cycles of 3,000 and 10,000 years. The longest and shortest are thus brought to the same. For the present is the same to all, though that which perish is not the same. And so that which is lost appears to be a mere moment. For a man cannot lose either the past or the future. For what a man has not, how can any one take this from him? These two things then thou must bear in mind. The one, that all things from eternity are of like forms and come round in a circle, and that it makes no difference whether a man shall see the same things turning 100 years, or 200, or an infinite time. And the second, that the longest liver and he who will die soonest lose just the same. For the present is the only thing of which a man can be deprived, if it is true that this is the only thing which he has, and that a man cannot lose a thing if he has it not. Remember that all is opinion, for what was said by the cynic Monimus is manifest, and manifest too is the use of what he said. If a man receives what may be got out of it, as far as it is true. I'm going to say that again. What was said by cynic Monimus is manifest, and manifest too is the use of what was said. If a man receives what may be got out of it, as far as it is true. That's what my whole channel is about. Using what I say as far as it is true to you, because I am speaking a significantly higher truth than the one that you are currently thinking about, no matter what you are interpreting me to be saying. The soul of man does violence to itself, first of all, when it becomes an abscess, and, as it were, a tumor on the universe, so far as it can. For to be vexed at anything which happens is a separation of ourselves from nature, in some part of which the natures of all other things are contained. In the next place, the soul does violence to itself when it turns away from any man, or even moves towards him with the intention of injuring, such as are the souls of those who are angry. In the third place, the soul does violence to itself when it is overpowered by pleasure or pain. Fourthly, when it plays a part, and does or says anything insincerely and untruly. Fifthly, when it allows any act of its own and any movement to be without an aim, and does anything thoughtlessly and without considering what it is, it being right that even the smallest thing be done with reference to an end. And the end of rational animals is to follow the reason and the law of the most ancient city and polity. Of human life, the time is a point, and the substance is in flux, and the perception dull, and the composition of the whole body subject to putrefaction, and the soul a whirl, and the fortune hard to divine, and fame a thing devoid of judgment, and to say all in a word, everything which belongs to the body is a stream, and that what belongs to the soul is a dream and vapor, and life is a warfare and a stranger's sojourn, and after fame is oblivion. And what then is that which is able to conduct a man? One thing, and only one, philosophy. But this consists in keeping the daemon within a man free from violence and unharmed, superior to pains and pleasures, doing nothing without a purpose, nor yet falsely and with hypocrisy, not feeling the need of another man's doing or not doing anything. And besides, accepting all that happens and all that is allotted as coming from thence, wherever it is, from whence he himself came, and finally, waiting for death with a cheerful mind, as being nothing else than a dissolution of the elements of which every being is compounded. But if there is no harm to the elements themselves, and each continually changing into another, why should a man have any apprehension about the change and dissolution of all the elements? For it is according to nature, and nothing is evil which is according to nature. End Book 2.